I went to Talbot, who's the GM, and I said, hey, why are y'all releasing me? You know, what I'm doing wrong, whatever. He said, you've done everything we want you to do. I'm like, what you releasing me for then? And I get home during that time period, and I find out that my mom is down with cancer, and I come home during that time period, and I'm trying to figure out life, because I've always wanted to play in the NFL. That was always one of my goals growing up in Smiley Court in Gibbs Village. That was one of the things I wanted to do. When I got home, I was in a place of trying to figure out, like, why am I here? I understand I'm here for my mom, and I'm glad I'm here, but I'm still trying to figure this thing out because I put a lot of time into it. I put a lot of time in trying to get this thing right. And I sat down with my spiritual father, my pastor at the time. This was 2004, guys. And he said to me that, he said, I know you've been thinking about football and all that, so you need to let that go. I was like, I'm not gonna let football go. He said, no, you need to really think about it. He said, you're gonna be a father to a lot of young men. So first of all, I was like, hey, I'm so glad, man, I'm gonna have nothing but boys. I'm so glad you're telling me that. I'm gonna have a bunch of boys, have a football team, I'm gonna have a basketball team, they all gonna be, I'm just ready for that to happen. He said, no, you don't understand. You're gonna be a spiritual father to a lot of young men who don't have a father. Now this is 2014. That went in 1 year and went out the other. And I didn't want to think about that time period, so my mom, a couple of weeks later, a month later, passes away. A month later, I get picked up by the Giants, and life began to go on. I began to still play football, but every time I stepped foot to play football, I always got released. Every time I got released, the GM would say, we just want to go a different direction. You've done everything we asked you to do. I'm like, it's not adding up, man. It's not adding up. So I get back home, and I tell people all the time, all I want to do is play 10 years in the NFL, retire, get a big house, a pond, and fish every day. That's all I want to do. I just want to play the NFL 10 years, come home. I would support what I need support here in the city, and I just want to get a pond and fish every day. Anybody knows I like to fish. So all I want to do is just fish and just help out at home, but that was not God's plan for me. And as I continue to be at home, more and more people were pulling me aside saying, hey, can you come speak to this group? Or can you come mentor my nephew? Or could you come speak to my son who's having behavior issues and things? I'm like, yeah, I can talk to him and try to help him. But as time went on, I kept finding myself more and more situations where more groups and more people were saying, hey, can you mentor me? And I ended up meeting this guy in North Montgomery who had a mentoring program. He was mentoring young men who were going out of home. He said, and I just would help drive from time to time, help out the guys who tour and things of that matter. I would just find a way to serve while I was here at home. So the guy walks up to me and said, hey man, I'm about to retire. I can't do this anymore. I'm like, you younger than me. He's like, I can't do this anymore. He said, you relate to these kids more than I do. I was like, you sure? He's like, yeah man. I was like, but you got 30-some guys that if you leave, they don't have anybody. And this was 2008. And I found myself being given 30 plus guys who were growing up out of dad all over the city of Montgomery. And when I began to think about that, I said, I have no idea about mentoring. I have no idea how to deal with these guys because many people don't understand that guys who grow up without a dad in the home, and I tell people all the time who don't understand that, if you don't grow up in a home without your dad, you have no idea who God is. The Father is a reflection of God's love. And if you don't have that, you don't understand what real love is. And I began to work with these guys, and next thing you know, we began to do all these things like camps, leadership camps, and things of that matter, learning how to mentor these guys. And I began to think like, man, God had me set up. He had a plan all along for me when I didn't even know what his plan was. But his plan was bigger than me. And I began to think about the people in my life who have mentored me and helped me along the way. And the first person I began to think about who's been a good model, I began to think about my dad. My dad raised 6 kids, 5 girls and 1 boy. Look at God. 5 girls and 1 boy. And I began to watch my dad, how he would take people who society had given up on. Guys would get out of jail and my dad would be the first one to give them a job, just cut the grass, just put money in their pockets. So I began to think about watching my dad growing up, how he would take care of people that nobody else wanted to have anything to do with. I began to think about Coach Holloway, who, when I was in middle school, he met me in the worst time of my life. I was in a turning school. Had a behavior issue. I was very angry all the time, very mad at life, but he seen something in me I didn't see in myself. And if Coach Holloway would not have been there for me at that time period, where would I have been without him standing in the gap for me then? He began to tell me when I was 13 and 14 years old, Henry, I believe you can play in the NFL one day. He began to tell me all the mistakes he made, all the things he did wrong, and all the things he needed to do and wish he would have done. And there he goes again, another man that I look back on and looking back at all the positive things he did in my life. I began to look at Mr. Green, who played in the NFL 10 plus years. And he would take time out, and he was the meanest guy in the world. The meanest guy in the world. He'll tell you now he still think he can beat me up. He can't do it anymore, but he was younger, man. He was hard on me. But he would take time out of his break and go outside and take pass sets with me. I'm only 15, 16 years old, but he sees that I have potential. And you begin to think about all the issues we have in the city. Just think about how the young men don't have those male figures in their lives. And everybody keeps saying we have problems, we have issues, but nobody's putting the finger to the point is they're only going to do what they see. And they don't have that positive role model in their lives. That's not going to cause them to do anything good. But they have that positive role model, just to want to step in that gap and not be their father, but just be there for them. To lead them, to believe in them. Like tonight's a night of hope, just to give them hope, to believe that they can be more than what they are. That's when we'll begin to see things change. And that's where my heart has been since that day that I guess my spiritual mentor spoke into my life and what God was saying to him. It began to come to pass even more and more where we've seen guys that society's given up on. Society said there's no hope, there's no way this kid is going to be anything. And we see a kid who's from first grade to eighth grade made all F's to start making A's and B's. We see young men who grow up in homes where they've always been violent and no hope at all, who are graduated from high school and college, and even have children now who are great fathers now. We see young men in this city who once were in the program are mentoring young men from the neighborhoods where they're at now. And that's what most of the foundation is all about. We're about giving back more than anything. We're about sowing seeds. We're about duplicating the aspect of it where we don't take our young men out of their neighborhoods. We want to build them up where they're at. Because you build them up where they're at, they're the ones who are the leaders. They're the ones who are going to have impact. They're the ones who are going to be world changers. And that's what God has called me to do here in the city. I tell people all the time, Jeremiah 29:11, every young man in the program, I ask them to memorize that scripture. Because I began to realize in my life that no matter what I went through, no matter what I had planned, God had a plan for me. God had a plan for me. He had something great for me. And every young man, everybody in this room right now, God has a plan for you too. In order for you to figure out that plan, you must have a relationship with God. And if these young men don't have anybody to show them the way, they're never going to recognize that plan for their life. Society and everything around them will tell them what they should be. But we know that God has a plan for them. He has something great that he wants to do in their lives. And that's what God has been using me. I'm a guy that grew up in Smiley Court and Gibbs Village my whole life. And guys began to do things. I tell people all the time, playing the NFL was a great thing. Don't get me wrong, playing in some of the big stadiums and all those things, but when those guys walk across that stage and graduate from high school, man, that does something to my heart. That is me winning the Super Bowl. When those guys begin to get married and have their own children, have a heart that says, man, I'm going to be there for my son, I'm going to be there for my daughter, that's my Super Bowl. That's my life-changing event that now, not only have we sowed seeds to young people, but now they're going to be world changers. And as I say again, like I said earlier, we cannot continue to do the great work that we're doing in the city without your help. First of all, we need your prayer. We need your support, and we need you to stand in the gap for these young men. Because we're not even impacting the amount of young men that we could impact. We can greatly impact the city even more. So you begin to think about all the things that are happening. Like I was telling the media earlier, there's still a lot of good things still happening here in the city. There's still a lot of light being shining. Even though it may seem like darkness is getting the overhand, there's still a lot of light and a lot of great things God are doing. And I'm just thankful that God chose me. I don't think I was the first person God chose. I really don't think. I think I'm the first one that ever said yes to what he wanted me to do. And I thank God for that, because if I would have said no and continued to do what I wanted to do, I probably would have made a lot of money, probably would have played in it for a long time, but I would not have been a happy person. And guys ask me all the time, listen, Tellis, why do you stop playing football? Why you do that? Blah, blah, blah. And I tell them all the time, if I was still playing football, I would not be in your life right now. And they'd be like, oh man. It hits them hard when I say that. I say, I won't be in your life right now. And that greatly changes everything. That changed their viewpoint, understanding that your life is all about what you can do for others. And that's one of the reasons that I started the Henry Tellis Foundation. That's one of the reasons that we're here. That's why we're doing the great work. And again, I can't do it without you guys' help. And I really appreciate everyone being here. Thank you.